All right, in the interest of everybody's time, I'm going to get us started. If we want to first, I would love for everybody to just introduce themselves and say what community you are representing, whether it's an existing community or you are developing. I am just going to call on you because I don't know that you have any particular order. So when I say your name, if you want to unmute yourself, just say who you are and yeah, what community you're representing. So Alan, you're first on my list here.
Okay, hopefully I have audio because I don't have video, unfortunately. I'm in the Armstrong tract. I'm gonna let Gretchen do the talking for our group. Okay, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining, Alan. While we're in Armstrong Tract, Gretchen, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Gretchen, and yeah, we're just getting ourselves together at Armstrong Tract to put together our Firewise community. So I've been talking to Maria over the last week and excited that so many people who volunteered to be on our committee are able to come to this meeting today. It's really cool. So thanks you guys all for coming.
Yeah, I echo that. We're really excited to have Armstrong Tract. Gretchen's email introducing herself last week was like a gift in my inbox. And I think you have a couple of other neighbors on the call. If you guys also want to unmute yourselves and introduce yourselves from Armstrong Tract.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Adelman. I'm in Armstrong with Gretchen as well.
And sorry, I'm not able to be on camera either, but my name is Doug Hopper and I'm Gretchen's neighbor in the Armstrong tract as well.
So much representation. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm going to go next on my list to Heather. You want to unmute and introduce yourself?
Hi guys, I'm Heather Dawson and I'm from the Pine Forest Firewise community.
Thanks, Heather. James, you're up next.
Hey everybody, James Flatler, and with Hopkins Village, newly developing Firewise community.
Thanks, James. Thanks for being here. Kimmy, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Kimmy with Plavada Woodlands. I'm sorry, I'm in the car. Had a family emergency and I have to drive back to the Bay Area. So sorry if I'm not on camera and able to participate fully.
No worries. So happy you could join us, Kimmy. And I will be recording this. It'll be available online afterwards. So if you need to jump off, it'll be there and you can always reach out with questions afterwards.
Oh, awesome.
Megan, of course. Thanks, Kimmy. Megan, you're next on the list.
Hi, I'm Megan Ogilvy. I'm the association manager for the communities in Old Greenwood, Gray's Crossing, and then also Cold Street.
Megan's got a long list. Thank you for being here, Megan. Patty, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Patty Robb with Mortis Woods.
Thanks, Patty. And Vince, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, Vince Wozinski from Truckee Airport, trying to put together the airport Firewise community.
Awesome. Thank you guys for doing that. This is the most people that we've had on a call, I think, but I think it's worth it to, where possible, put faces with names or at least names with communities, because you guys are representing sort of movement, let's say, within your neighborhoods, and you are all resources to each other as well. And that's important to remember. You guys have the most experience in terms of what it takes to get these, communities moving and engage your neighbors. So I like to be able to foster that connection. I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Maria Marsh. I'm Wildfire Prevention Specialist with Truckee Fire. And thank you guys for joining this month's Firewise Virtual Office Hours. I'm going to click through a couple slides. And Vince, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen? Perfect, thank you. Just quickly, we're doing these Firewise Virtual Office Hours once a month on the third Wednesday of each month. Last month, we did what I hope was a pretty helpful session on planning ahead for renewals. Basically, covering what is required of each community for each year of participation. And today we're going to zoom in on risk assessments. Next month, we're going to zoom in on action plans. And if you have questions about the other requirements, like your community outreach event, vegetation management, those sorts of things, then you can pop back to the truckeefire.org/Firewise website and see what we covered in terms of what's involved in those additional aspects. And then starting in September, October, November, we're going to be generally available for questions about all of the logistics of submitting your application, whether that's the first time application or the renewal, and navigating the portal. I really appreciate you guys participating now rather than waiting until like November 1st to start on this process, because the more Firewise communities we have, the more juggling we at Truckee Fire are trying to do to support all of you guys. So getting a head start helps you with a smoother application process, and same for us. Also want to highlight one of our supporting organizations in the area, Eastern Regional Firewise Coalition, which Heather and Patty, who are on the call, are both actively involved in. It is a coalition basically of your peers that are getting together to basically serve the benefit of all the Firewise communities in the eastern side of Nevada and Placer County. So I definitely encourage everybody to attend, participate as often as you can in those meetings. Introduced myself already. Truckee Fire is the regional coordinator for all of our communities here, and it is one of the hats that I wear at Truckee Fire supporting you guys. So without further ado, we're going to deep dive into talking about risk assessments. I'm mostly going to be talking about this in the context of the renewal application, but pretty much everything that I'm saying also applies for the new communities. So I'll try to make the distinction where possible. The risk assessment, just going to cut myself off there and get to it when I get to my slides. So the risk assessment document is due when you first apply for Firewise recognition, and then it's due for renewal every 5 years. Oops. So that's the part of the application that we're zooming in on today. The risk assessment is considered a snapshot of a point in time. So if it was completed in 2024, it can be renewed and submitted in 2029. If you have experience with the Firewise portal, you might know that this seems obvious, but once you get into the portal and how it sort of automatically generates renewal dates, it might get a little bit confusing. Because when you submit a new document, it automatically triggers a new date. So if your action plan was in fact completed in 2024, but you changed a little something on it and resubmitted that document just because for record keeping, submitted it this year, it might push your renewal date that shows on the system back to 2030, when in fact, CAL FIRE is going to be looking for it when it is actually due. So that can get confusing. Best practice basically is open your most recently submitted document to verify, or refer to the handy dandy list that I maintain for you guys, where I literally clicked into every single one of your applications and documents, and I keep track of who's due when. So we have due this year, Gray's Crossing, Old Greenwood, Pine Forest, Plavada, Ponderosa Ranchos, and West End Donner Lake. Almost all of you guys actually had your risk assessment completed in 2019, but they were submitted to the system in 2020. So we probably should have done them last year, but we're going to do them this year along with Pine Forest, who is on time for doing her risk assessment this year. Pine Forest and Plevada, you guys have the unusual occurrence of having your action plan update at the same time as your risk assessment, which is great. I don't really know why the risk assessment and action plans were originally set on a different renewal schedule, 5 years for risk assessments, 3 years for action plans. It's how it is. And those of you that are doing a risk assessment update this year, it just gives you a little more time to wrap up what you had in the works from your existing action plan, and then do an update on your action plan in the year that it's due for the appropriate year's renewal. Resources for working on your risk assessment. Come to today's Firewise virtual office hours. Thumbs up for you guys, you are here. Oh, I thought I had a little star thing. Anyway, imagine stars and balloons there. Really happy you guys are here. This simplifies the process for all of us, and you guys get to hear and learn from each other's questions that are we'll have plenty of time to talk about. For those of you that are in existing communities, you got an email from me with basically a meeting poll to schedule or request a time for reserving your risk assessment walkthrough. So if you haven't responded to that yet, please respond to that so I can get you guys scheduled. And those of you that are in developing communities, likely next week, once I have all of our existing communities scheduled, I'm going to book you guys. The risk assessment walkthrough is a 2 to 3 hour in the community, like in person, sit down, walk around conversation with your resident leader, committee members, other sort of active interested parties, and Truckee Fire, usually me and Eric Hornvet, our wildfire prevention manager, and or Dylan Sheedy, our assistant wildfire prevention manager and registered professional forester. We talk through the information that goes into the risk assessment, what particular concerns you might have about your neighborhood. We give you information about the stats within your community, the condition of structure features and defensible space mitigations that we've observed through our inspections, and then basically work together to produce the risk assessment document, which is ultimately what gets submitted to CAL FIRE and NFPA for review. Those of you that are renewing a risk assessment, in preparation for our walkthrough appointment, I strongly suggest that you review the existing, basically expiring risk assessment document. Think about how far you've come. Think about what risks still remain that there's more work to be done on. Think about what has been addressed. And we'll talk about those things when we have our risk assessment walkthrough. I also encourage everybody to sign up for the Eastern Regional Firewise Coalition's mailing list. They're working with a partner organization, the Fire Safe Nevada County Coalition, to host an in-person meeting in our neck of the woods to support writing risk assessments and action plans. So sign up for their newsletter so that you get information if and when that's scheduled this season. And then lastly, this is mostly what we're going to be looking at today. Access resources on truckeefire.org/firewise/admin. And this is what's there. We're going to be looking at all of these documents. This is a snapshot straight from that website, truckeefire.org/firewise/admin. And the big exciting thing is that the Fire Safe Nevada County Coalition produced an awesome how-to guide for writing a successful risk assessment. And Truckee Fire Protection District overlaps Nevada County, but we also include parts of Placer County and the incorporated town of Truckee. So stuff operates a little bit differently with Firewise communities within the town of Truckee. So I have gone ahead and completely Frankensteined their document and added notations for what's specific to Truckee Fire. And that's what I'm going to walk through with you guys today. And what I'm hoping is that it sets all of us up for success in a collaborative process for completing the risk assessments. With that, I'm going to jump over to show you guys what I'm talking about here. We should all be pretty familiar with this website at this point, truckeefire.org/firewise/admin. This is sort of the landing page for a lot of what you guys are, informing your residents about, the resources that you're using, and everything that you need for both becoming Firewise or maintaining your Firewise good standing. I'm going to scroll down here to the risk assessment section, and we're going to click on how to write a risk assessment. I'm going to switch my screen to make this as easy to view as possible. This is basically how I would suggest you guys operate. Have the how to write a risk assessment document open. That's what I have on the right side. And the actual template open at the same time, which if we scroll down, the actual first page of the template is here on page 3. That is also linked from, not that one. Where are we? So the required template is the first link when you're on the admin page. The first link will take you into the Firewise template, and the second one will take you into this how-to document that we're looking at. So with both of them up, I'm not going to read to you guys. I thought about playing the video that I encourage all of you to watch, but I'm not going to do that either. The very first thing that I will say is that it would be great if you guys watched the video on the NFPA site about risk assessments, why they're important, and what the process actually is. Again, things operate a little differently within Truckee Fire District because you guys have this unusual situation of having a fire district supporting you in the regional coordinator position. So you won't be doing as much by yourself as is represented in the video, but it's good to sort of understand a refresher on wildfire behavior and why we're doing what we're doing for our communities, right? So the link is within this document, and it's also one of the links on that admin page. You guys are already working with Truckee Fire, whether it's your first risk assessment or the quinquennial, that was a new word for me, quinquennial, every 5-year risk assessment renewal. And they jump right in to walking us through page by page. So we're going to sort of skim through this, and if you guys have questions, go ahead and unmute and just jump in, or if you want to save them for later, that's fine too. But I'm happy to go into more detail if you like. Assessment participants, this is pretty straightforward. And I included in here the way that you should include Truckee Fire if you're including us. Well, you should be including us, but what of our contact information to include here. They seemed to sort of forget to put the column headers here, but what they want is name, title and agency, phone number, and email address. And you guys can remember that by, the example that I have on the how-to guide. Your site name, most of you guys have this already. CAL FIRE is because of the number of Firewise communities in California. For clarity purposes, they are currently trying to resolve any duplications, make some changes to names to improve clarity when someone is searching for a community by name. So we might be coming to you guys with some suggested or recommended name changes. That being said, you know, don't get too creative. They want it to be somewhat descriptive of the, you know, neighborhood. We're not going to have, you know, one called the Truckee Tahoe Firewise community because that's not really accurate of what the neighborhood it's representing. City, county, state, you guys know all of those. Boundary description, even if you are bound by a certain development and HOA, I would encourage you to also include a list of the main roads within the community, or say, you know, roads branching off of Richards, for example, so that we have a lot of people, you know, whether it's CAL FIRE, NFPA, insurance agencies, we have a lot of people looking at information about our Firewise communities now that aren't necessarily familiar with the region. So it's helpful for everybody if there are some more descriptors in there. That being said, we also include the map that Fire Safe Council creates for all of us. So that information is there as well. Going on to area, there's a set of stats that we're going to provide you that we get from a Fire Safe Council board member that does a bunch of mapping for us. And one of the things that he provides is county statistics on acreage, number of dwelling units, types of ownership, lot sizes, and also elevation. So that information is going to fill in the boxes here for area, number of dwelling units, your residential types, types of ownership, which you guys probably know anyway, but that's also, you can glean that from the county stats, and lot sizes. The one thing that's not included in that statistical data is the number of residents. This is basically an estimate from you guys. We used to be able to put something like varies seasonally. They don't like that anymore. We need to put a specific number. It is, again, it's up to you guys how you enter this. Generally, the way we calculate it is some 2 plus a little bit times the number of dwelling units is the like average household size for our area. So again, you can make it an estimate. No one is checking this against any other stats. The number of dwelling units is not checked for being correct anywhere, but it is checked for consistency against other parts of your Firewise dashboard. So when we're submitting your Firewise risk assessment to the portal, we'll make sure that the number of dwelling units here matches what you entered for the number of dwelling units in the information on your Firewise portal dashboard. Any questions so far? Feel free to unmute yourself and interrupt me.
Maria, when you're talking about number of dwelling units, are we including the commercial businesses? Like we talked about those ones that are on Donner Pass Road. Does that count as a dwelling unit?
Great question. No, Firewise stats are mostly, the counting parts are mostly about residences. Yeah. What they are counting is if there are multi-unit residences, then they are looking at, for example, you know, if there's a condo where it's one building but multiple units within it. And the stats that we get from the county indicate if there are guest houses and ADUs. So no one is, you know, taking a ruler and a calculator to check the numbers. So, you know, if your community has a lot of multi-unit dwellings, then you might want to take that into consideration. If you've got, you know, one or two here or there, then, you know, it's not going to really make that much of a difference in the numbers. Moving on. Description of local wildland fire characteristics. This is where you guys get to learn some. Oh wait, I skipped other site info. This last one, they have it number 4 on the how-to guide. Unfortunately, the risk assessment itself doesn't have numberings on it for ease of completion, but we work with what we got. So for other site information, we usually find it helpful to include stuff like your utility providers, which for, very developed communities that are on, community-wide plans for all of this, it's not as relevant. But for example, if your community operates on wells, that's important information to include in here. If you guys are primarily using residential propane tanks, that's important information to use. This is also where you could include significant land managers of neighboring parcels. For example, if you back up to Forest Service land, if you back up to land that's owned by Tahoe Donner Land Trust, for example, this is a good place to include that information. If there's a golf course within your community, this is a good place to include that, as well as things like significant transmission lines that pass through your neighborhood. If there is a heavily used recreational area, like Martis Woods, for example, includes information about the fact that the Sawtooth 06 trailhead is right near their community because they get a lot of out of area users passing through there. It increases, the amount of people that are using the area, and just sort of a factor in their community. Yeah, Vince, jump in.
The amount of space that I'm looking at on the form, is that fixed? Because it seems like we're talking about a lot of information and I see 1.5 lines there.
Great question. I get creative with my abbreviations. It is fixed and the text will get smaller and smaller as you type. If you have more information to include than there's space for, then we can absolutely add an overflow page that, you say continued on additional sheet. If you are particularly savvy in Adobe Acrobat, you can add a text box to the area and continue typing there. They haven't had a problem with that sort of thing in the past either. Great question. All right, moving on to description of local wildland fire characteristics. The first 2 questions here, I have a bit of guidance on. First is the common vegetation types in your site. Most of our region falls into one of these 2 categories, upper montane or lower montane. And you guys are welcome to basically, copy the name of the one that seems to most match it's mostly based on elevation, which vegetation type is most common per the elevation, and rearrange the order that they're in based on how common they are in your area. That being said, a lot of our communities are heavily landscaped, so you can put that in as well. Heavily landscaped within 100 feet of structures, common areas, or further distance is primarily upper montane forest, for example. Again, these are pretty flexible areas. They are reviewing them when we submit our applications. They're reviewing them to make sure they are completed and thoughtful and make sense, but they are reviewing hundreds of these when it comes to renewal time. So the importance of accuracy and how complete we're being is mostly for how helpful it is for us and for you guys in terms of working within your community. For topography, for elevation, you can get a precise range of elevation, again, from the county stats. You can also, check the average elevation, at your own home. Again, not particularly specific, within a range of a couple 100 feet is going to indicate the right amount of information. You can describe the geographical features that they explain here, just based on your own understanding of what direction your community is, the slope is facing, and that sort of thing. If you are the sort of person that wants more precise data, then you can go to caltopo.com, and they have an amazing amount of information that you can research, understand, and include the summary of in this topography section. But again, general information is what's needed here. As they guide in here with number 5 for severe wind exposure, all of our areas up here are regularly exposed to winds. If you do find that you have frequent severe winds within your neighborhoods, then you can mark that as well. And our whole area has a history of fire occurrence, so you can check that box. The next couple pages, which is really like the bulk of the work for the risk assessment, we are happy to supply you guys with some data. So generally, this is these observations are completed by an informal poll, basically, of community members walking or driving through the neighborhood, taking a tally of what they see of these structure features and defensible space management within their community. Because Truckee Fire has been conducting defensible space inspections within the region we're actually in our 4th year now, so we're circling back to communities that were originally inspected in 2022. We have data on this that can help you guys complete those. So as we meet with each of you, we're going to be providing inspection stats, which are going to answer the questions of what percentage of your homes have non-combustible roofing material. Most of you will be able to guess the answers, the ranges for many of these, but some of it will be surprising. So we'll be providing you stats to check these off. If any of the information that we provide you don't feel is accurate, then switch it to what you feel is an accurate representation of your community. But we'll be providing those stats, and I'll have you guys then come in and check the boxes. Same for whether the areas are maintained in zone 0, which NFPA calls the immediate zone, zone 1, which they refer to as the intermediate zone, and zone 2, the extended zone. So again, that's information that we'll provide you guys. And it's good to read through and sort of look at generally what they're asking here for. It's the same thing that we talk to each of you about when we're doing your defensible space inspections and talking about defensible space priorities within the region. Any questions about that? Great.
Just one question. Do these defensible space statements apply to the entire district? I mean, it seems that they could apply to one house and not another.
Yeah, great question. So our inspections are conducted on a parcel to parcel level. Some of them are curbside only if we haven't been invited onto the property to do a full access inspection. Information like the material of the roof and the material of the siding is going to be pretty accurate from a curbside inspection. Information about other things like vent sizing, gutters, and the degree to which the defensible space zone is maintained is, there's a margin of error if we haven't seen the backyard of a property. We're then looking at aggregated data. So the information I'll give you will be, for example, 300 homes within Armstrong Tract inspected, 270 homes were identified as having non-combustible roofs. And then, so you'll be able to say 75% of our structures have non-combustible roofs, for example. So you won't be seeing individualized reports on anyone's property, but it will be specific to the boundary of your guys' neighborhood.
Okay, sounds good.
Great. Common areas or adjacent public lands. Most of our communities have some, larger green space, or more likely, honestly, are adjacent to some sort of public lands. And then the subsequent question, is there a management plan for these fuels? So the great news is that Truckee Fire completed a community wildfire protection plan in 2024 that addresses fuels management within our whole district. So that is a district level plan. So that can be referenced in this space for all of our communities. And then each community can also speak to specific projects happening adjacent to them. So for example, Heather in Pine Forest can reference a recent fuels management project on a large open space near her community. Information about those individual projects can be found at the addresses linked here, truckeefire.org/projects and truckeefire.org/grants. There's also potentially other agencies or other land managers that are doing projects on your adjacent property that hopefully, if you guys are not already tied into those lines of communication, we can get you tuned into them, because those agencies are generally very interested and active in communicating with the residents that are in the communities that abut their lands, because we're the ones that are benefiting from that fuels management work that they're doing, so they want us to know about it. So those are the sorts of things that you guys can mention in this area of, is there a management plan for these fuels? And then additional comments or observations. This is a good spot to, throw in other specific information that you guys have. You might state that you have an older community, as in the buildings were constructed a long time ago, or that it's a newer community, so all of the buildings meet newer building standards. You could talk about if you have structures that are very close together, if you have a lot of one-way streets in your community, that sort of thing. Other things that we haven't captured in the other parts of the risk assessment that might influence things like structure vulnerability or resiliency, the condition of defensible space and fuels management, and or evacuation circumstances or challenges within your community. And I know that's a small space for some big topics, but those are also things that they can just be little bullet points here, and then we'll include them in more detail in the next sections. So the last two sections here are these big free forms for summary and recommendations. These parts, we will provide you guys with the majority of the content that's going to go in here. You guys don't have to come up with this on your own. And this is really where the most collaborative part of this process is going to be. We will be primarily, what CAL FIRE is looking for is that we're summarizing the information that we've included in this section. So we'll be summarizing and providing, more information about the roofing material. It doesn't ask up in this checkbox section if they're about, the number of homes with wood shingle roofs, but that's something that we'll call out in the specific summary area. We'll let you know if you have a high number of roofs in your community that are wood shingle, and that might be a focus of your subsequent action plan, or if there were actually none and your entire community appears to have Class A non-combustible roofing. This is also where we can include more detail on some of those, bullet point information that we talked about. If there are things that you want us to touch on or discuss, we'll summarize here everything that we talk about within our risk assessment, within the risk assessment walkthrough. So, in short, you don't have to write this. We will, you guys can, raise the concerns, and we'll write this section for you with your input, of course. And then same for the recommendations section. CAL FIRE and NFPA, when they review the risk assessment, they're looking to see that the recommendations are specifically addressing the summary of what was identified as, hazards, risks, concerns in the area. So we might say that we encourage, reducing use of bark mulch. And there will be some other sort of region-specific recommendations in here about making sure that your residents are all signed up for our evacuation and emergency alert systems and that sort of thing. So again, this is a section that we'll write for you with your guys' input on what your particular needs, concerns, or plans are. But the idea, yeah, please go ahead.
So are you guys able to then find out the number of people who are signed up for like Placer Alert or Code Red or anything like that? Do you guys have access to it? So we have an idea of like the percentage of residents within our Firewise communities who are signed up?
Those are not our systems, no. So we don't have any information about that.
Okay.
It's the sort of thing that, the way Eric does it is at a community meeting, he'll say, raise your hand if you've heard of, each of the systems. Yeah, so we don't have a way of like measuring that, but it's always something that we encourage.
Maria, since James is on the call, even though he's in another capacity, do you know, James, how many people are on the evac systems for Truckee?
Sorry, do you mind repeating the system you're talking about? I missed it.
It would be Code Red. Well, actually, it would be Code Red or Alert, Placer Alert, because we.
Okay,
we
yeah. So for the, I couldn't tell you on for Placer because that's outside of the town of Truckee's jurisdiction. But within the town of Truckee, it's hard to get the exact number of people exactly within the Code Red system because everybody can sign up for phone call, text message, email. If you're hearing impaired, I think it's called TTY. And so the teletype communications. And so I believe when we send out, if we were to send out an alert to the entire town of Truckee, it's approximately 21,000 contacts or so, I believe. And so, that's could be family members of residents, actual residents, second homeowners, and things like that. So hard to put exactly a number on what it is. And then there's also, that's not including the unincorporated areas of Nevada County. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, as a Firewise leader, I'm always interested in, of my 70 people, who's on and who's off. But yeah, at a high level, it does. Thank you so much.
I don't think we'd be able to provide lists of who's signed up and who's not. I know that we do have some access of the people who are signed up, but there's kind of limited access within the Code Red system on how many times we can dive into that list. They try to keep it as proprietary as possible, unfortunately, and part of that's a way for them to protect our ability to jump from service provider to service provider. We do have the ability to do it, but it's kind of on a limited basis, and we could pay for it if we wanted to continue pulling it, but there's not a whole lot of benefit from it. So we just, I like to use a good example of Tahoe Donner. There's a lot of people there that are very active and signed up for emergency alerts, but I continue to show up at their annual member barbecue every year and try to get people to sign up. And I would say 99% of them say, yep, I'm already signed up. But still an opportunity to get that 1 out of the 100 that aren't. And the people that, continually hear it, maybe eventually they come to it and sign up for it. Sorry, long-winded answer, but.
No, good to know. So next time I can just say that information is not available rather than we don't have that information. Thanks,
I won't
James.
ask the question next time.
And we know Heather likes data. And Patty, you guys both like data, so. Cool, well, great question. And let me see what else we have here. Okay, after the summary and recommendations, we are going to scroll past an informational page, and this is oddly enough the page that we hear people have the most difficulty with, which is including your map. It's set up so that if you click on the box, it should, I hope you guys can still see this pop-up thing that says select image, and then you can browse, basically open your file system and insert your map there. Weirdly, who knows whether you have the Adobe Acrobat Pro or whether you're working on a Microsoft or Apple, people have different challenges with this, but the map that you are going to insert is the one that we have provided you guys with. That is sort of the standardized map because we have all of our maps provided by this wonderful board member of the Fire Safe Council. So that's what you will upload there. If you have technical difficulties with it, then we can always add it into the document as another page. And then there's a ton of information on the last couple of pages about the Firewise program, renewal information, and all that sort of thing. And then the last couple tips on the how-to document is to refer to existing examples. So they have one here for a Colfax community. At our website, you can see one from a Truckee Fire community, and that can be helpful again because there's a lot of information that might be similar or shared between nearby neighborhoods. And then lastly, this thing that she links to down here is the same one that I mentioned at the very top, which is, I'll click into it so that you guys can see the Community Wildfire Risk Assessment tutorial. So this brings you through information about the environmental features that impact ignition resistance in the context of a wildfire, how to identify particular geographical features, and details about using the risk assessment in order to complete your action plan. So tons of information there. The last thing that I'm going to do is jump to the portal and show you guys where you will be submitting in it. Armstrong Tract, I'm excited to jump into your dashboard here as an example. And for each of you, whether you are renewing or starting your Firewise journey, each year you need to resubmit an application. So when you start your application, the risk assessment is just one part of what you're submitting. And when you attach the document here, you'll put in, you can put in Truckee Fire as the name here. Your guys' names as resident leaders and community members will be within the risk assessment document itself. You will upload the file, ideally one document. It can get really confusing for CAL FIRE if there are a lot of old documents and replaced documents on the portal. And then the date assessment completed. Ideally, what we should be putting here is the date that we do our sit-down meeting. It's kind of flexible, like I said, because the system reads it one way. You know, when we're completing the risk assessment really applies to the whole year. But if you are doing a renewal, you're going to want to make sure, let's see who's doing a renewal this year. Who's on here? Grays is doing a renewal. So when you start your renewal application, it very confusingly is, oh, look, it updated it. That's great. So you, in the past, it carried over what you had before. So anyway, you want to make sure that you are uploading a new file and including make sure that the date here is accurate for this year. The other thing that you can do is, let's see if it lets you do it in review. This takes us back here. Okay, well, what I want to show you is how to remove the old document. But you know what? We'll get to that when we get to navigating the portal in September. So right now we can just focus on the actual risk assessment document, getting our walkthroughs scheduled and starting to work on this collaborative document together. So what questions do you guys have?
Hey, Maria, this is Lauren Van Loon calling from our new Alps community.
Hey,
I joined
Lauren.
late. Hello.
Welcome. No problem.
Thank you.
We missed
Thank you.
introductions, but we're happy to have you.
Thank you.
Alps is
I'm
what
so
we're
sorry.
calling.
I got stuck.
No worries. Do you want to explain what the Alps in Truckee is now referring to?
Sure. I said such a cool name. I'm happy to. So I live in Prosser Heights, and we have some small-ish neighboring areas to Alder Hill, which is kind of the private gated community above Prosser Heights, and then Stony Creek, and what's the other one? I guess that's
Prosser.
Yeah, Prosser Heights, Alder Hill, and Stony Creek, the three of them. And that you came up with that acronym, right, Maria? The ALPS.
I did.
Alder, Prosser, Stony Creek. I love it. It's great. Yes, we're happy to get started here in our neighborhood.
Awesome. What's your question, Lauren? We're recording this, so you'll be able to look back in the recording and for anything that you missed, but feel free to ask your question as well.
Okay, great, nice. So my question was, what's the best way to start scheduling the walkthrough for the risk assessment with you or Truckee Fire?
Yes, great question. We are finalizing our scheduling with our existing communities, and then I'm going to send an email to our developing communities, almost all of which are represented here, which is amazing, with kind of a Calendly poll of the available times that we have for you guys. It's probably going to be a 3-hour block of time. So for our existing communities, we're blocking for 2 hours and might not even use all of that time, depending on how much communication we have throughout the season as well. But for the new communities, we like to block 3 hours, and we'll send, basically a meeting poll so that we can get everybody on the calendar without going back and forth. Does this time work for you? Does that time work for you? So I'll be sending that out probably next week, and then you can confer with your committee members what works best for the most people. Select your, 1, 2, and maybe 3 times that are available, and then I'll get back to you guys with which ones we're going to schedule you for.
Perfect. Thank you.
Of course. What other questions do you guys have? Any questions not related to risk assessments? Oh, go for it, James.
I'm really sorry if you already said this, but do you recommend just holding off on completing the risk assessment until we've done kind of the on-site walkthrough with Truckee Fire staff, or what do you recommend?
Not even necessarily. I mean, since we've covered this amount of information, you can absolutely start in on it. The data that we're going to be providing, so you guys in Hopkins Village, about half of the inspections that have been completed for within Hopkins Village were done as part of the construction process. So I want to get those having like a sort of more current, realistic inspection so that we have information about defensible space and that kind of stuff. But there aren't going to be a lot of surprises in the walkthrough when we talk with you guys, especially because it's a more developed and newer community. So absolutely feel free to start on that and just leave some gaps if there are things you're not sure about yet. Yep.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And that brings up another great point, especially for our newer communities, which is that even though we line this out, the application process is sort of a step-by-step. It doesn't all have to happen in order. You don't have to have the risk assessment completed in order to start planning your community event, in order to start collecting, hours spent on risk reduction activities from your neighbors, that sort of thing. It can all happen simultaneously. And for collecting that information, you can even look at sort of a bigger window than just this fire season. So if you have been working on becoming Firewise since last year, if you've been talking with your neighbors and having community meetings about it, if you've been holding community cleanup days before even talking about it being part of a Firewise process, then include that information. That's relevant. Any questions about that?
Maria, this is Lauren, and forgive me if this has already been asked and answered, but is there a way to get a list of all of the community members? Because we have quite a few houses in ours, and with just names or email addresses or?
Great question. So what we do have access to, I'll show you guys, is the counties provide a site. Whoops. Let's go here. Nevada County has a site called My Neighborhood 2.0, and this will actually give you mailing addresses for, which is publicly available information for every address within the county. So we can help you navigate this, but you could make a mailing list for yourself. Besides that, we can't provide, email addresses or phone numbers that have been shared with us in the context of defensible space inspections, but we can work with you on how we might potentially, through our systems, communicate with your neighbors. Sometimes it lines up really well, like in Armstrong Tract. They're just getting started and they are on our defensible space inspection schedule this year. So we were able to attach a little flyer to their door hangers as our seasonal inspectors were going door to door, encouraging them to sign up for Gretchen's contact list. If it doesn't line up perfectly like that, then sometimes it can happen the next year. So North Shore Donner Lake just became Firewise last year. And a couple of days ago, our fantastic team of defensible space inspectors spent the morning stapling 900 leaflets with information about the new Firewise community to the door hangers for North Shore Donner Lake. So it's we'll work with you on the process, but it's also good to remember that the Firewise community boundaries can include people and properties that haven't yet engaged with you, that you haven't communicated with. And that's sort of the beauty of the Firewise program, which is that the intention is education and outreach. So the goal of the action plan is, one of the goals on the action plan is to include more people, to bring more people into the fold, to knock on, more doors, to grow the size of your mailing list and that sort of thing. So, you can use whatever means you have available to you in communicating to begin with, but really all you need to get started immediately is the couple people on your community list. And, between however many of you guys you have, 5, the only actual calculated requirement for Firewise is the number of risk reduction hours required per community, and that's calculated as 1 hour per dwelling unit. And if you think about how much time each of you individually spends raking pine needles, you probably make up for, a good number of neighbors that you don't have contact information for, that aren't reporting what they're doing yet. So we have yet to see a community that doesn't exponentially exceed the number of required hours. So from both sides, they, connecting with your neighbors and growing that contact can be a work in progress.
Are there any Measure T funds available for kind of like startup costs, just for example, for postage? Just
not for postage. If you were flyering or something like that, we could probably help out with, doing it in the office. We printed the flyers for Gretchen and did the work of stapling it for Armstrong Tract. So for that sort of thing, we can help out. So we can, if you have some ideas, you can bring those to us and we can talk about what we can do to help.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. What other questions do you guys have?
I don't have a question on the risk assessment, but I wanted to let the community know that we posted the video from the Fire Ready Truckee Tahoe event, and it has really, really great presentation material from Eric, James, Michelle, and who am I forgetting? Oh, Jason. And it's up in the photos, so I'm going to just share that with you guys. If you don't know this link, it's escaped me. And then the other thing, and this is just random, it turns out that there's a monthly meeting called the Golden Meet and Greet at the Truckee Recreation Center that has somewhere between 40 and 100 people. And I submitted a what's in your go bag presentation for them. And if that moves forward, I'm going to reach out to you, Maria and James, to do a fun and relevant presentation to the seniors of our community. The idea is that it might be a popular topic, so it's another opportunity for us to touch a community that needs specific or values specific information. So just kind of let you know.
I'll jump in, Heather. Thanks for that. Yeah, I've spoken to that group several times. It's a great group, very active. I would say that the number is probably closer to like 25 to 45 on a given meeting, but still very active, great group to meet with. And yeah, I'm always happy to get in front of them. So let me know, and happy to help support.
That's awesome. And I think that that includes one of the communities that is captured within Vince's boundaries, which is the senior center. And we've sort of been talking, collaborating on what it is going to look like to have the, the senior apartments included within a Firewise community. So James, I think it would be great to have some, collaboration with you on that, because the, evacuation challenges and concerns is probably one of the things that community, that the senior apartments within the Firewise community want to address. It's not Vince's challenge to address, but something that, will sort of help bring community involvement to.
Cool.
And then also wanted to mention, Heather, is the video going to be up on the Eastern Regional page? I think that would be a great landing site for that.
I'll let Linda know where it is, so she can put it up. I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
Awesome.
It's not the highest quality, but really the audio's good and the pictures are good. Sometimes the presenter steps out of the videographer only had one setting. So sometimes the presenter steps out of view.
That's great. Thanks, Heather. And just to explain what Heather is talking about, last Wednesday, Eastern Regional Firewise Coalition put on, in collaboration with Truckee Fire and several other local organizations, an event at the Truckee Rec Center that was a great sort of expo of a bunch of different vendors, safety professionals, and service providers in the area. That the first hour was speakers, presentations, and then the second hour was this sort of expo style with lots of tables and information and people to interact with. And it was a great event. We had, Heather, I think you had 200 or so attendees reported.
We had a really good turnout. Glenshire had probably the most number of people, but from all over the community. And it seems like it's something we were testing to see if this was an event that would have legs annually. And it seems like there's enough interest to do that, and some really great ideas and even bigger collaborations and how we can work together and make it fun and approachable and relevant, and everybody walks away with a little bit more knowledge and feeling a little safe.
Awesome. The great thing to know about a community event like this is that this can count for your community education event for your Firewise requirements. We, of course, want you to, advertise it, encourage it within your community, and something that is conducted within your community is also always great. You're sort of likely to get higher turnout for something that's happening on the, cul-de-sac down the street. But this can count as the educational event. And then if people from your neighborhood attended, they can also put that in as some of the time that they spent on their risk reduction activities. So Gretchen, if you were there for 2 hours and you raked pine needles in your backyard, for the last 3 months for 5 hours each month, then you're adding up pretty quickly to the required number. Any other questions? Well, I am so happy to have so many of you guys participating and to have a lot of participation from new Firewise communities this year. We are nearing, with the participation of you guys, we're nearing 90% probably of residential structures within Truckee Fire District being within Firewise communities, which is fantastic. We're so happy to have you guys as leaders within your neighborhoods and as sort of liaisons between your community members and the fire district. So you know how to reach me, firewise@truckeefire.org. and I encourage you to attend the next, I'm going to pull it up on the screen, calendar of events for ERFWC. Their next meeting is Tuesday, August 5th. I'm almost always there in person, and it's a great way to connect with other leaders, developing leaders, ask questions, and sort of get a better understanding of what it looks like to be Firewise. So I'll stick around if anybody has additional questions to ask, but I really appreciate you guys coming.